This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Know in our heart that the very things that make you different are your greatest gifts and most valuable contributions. Valeria interviews Mei Ling Tsui. She is a third-generation intuitive, creator of Soul Agenda School, and speaker. Mei Ling helps women who identify as the black sheep or scapegoats of their families move from feeling inadequate to becoming powerful cycle breakers by reconnecting them with their unique soul agenda and divine support system so that they can shine their light into the world, knowing they are deeply loved and valued for who they are. As a mixed-race woman who inherited intuitive and psychic abilities through her Chinese lineage, Mei Ling is a bridge between the East and West, and between the earthly and spiritual realms. Growing up, she constantly felt like the outsider, never quite fitting in anywhere. As a child of divorce, the feeling was only exacerbated when she became the inconvenient addition to her parents' new families. The spiritual journey that eventually led Mei Ling to become a professional intuitive started with one question: why? Mei Ling shares personal stories from growing up as the black sheep and scapegoat, and weaves in vulnerable, potent, and often funny insights, gleaned from these experiences with the hopes that those listening feel less alone on their healing journeys. Meet Mei Ling at meiling-intuitive.com. Here's the interview with Mei Ling Tsui.
In your own words, who is Mei Ling Tsui?
I would say that I'm someone who's always been kind of in the in-between and a little bit of an outsider. And now I won't say that it's something negative. I think of that as more as a positive thing because I'm also very curious. I've always been a curious person since I was a child. I was always that kid that was asking, why? Why is this like that? But why? Why? And it's easier to observe when you're standing on the edges than sometimes when you're, in the middle of it. And as an intuitive, I find that helps me as well to be curious and to observe and to stand a little bit on the outside.
Wow. What's not to love about that? Being on the outside. That to me translates very much into what you just said, the meaning of that word curiosity. So being open, receptive to what is, to what's happening now, to what is present, to what is true to us, going back to what we just talked off record a moment ago. So being intuitive, for some people, it sounds abstract. For me, it's very real, and it's something that, it's so clear. There's so much happening here that if we pay attention, it's almost like a lot more than the eyes or the ears can capture. But from your perspective, I would love for the audience to have an idea, Mei Ling. What is intuition first, and what is to be an intuitive?
Intuition, I feel, is something that we're all born with. As humans, we all have this. And the way I like to explain it to people, it's like connecting to the Wi-Fi. So you can
Yes.
either be offline and feel kind of lost,
Yes.
or you can be online and be connected to this greater benevolent power and force that is always watching over us, caring for us and guiding us. And I feel that intuition is that connection, like that Wi-Fi connection. And once we are open to that, then we are always guided. And intuition is like the language of the soul. It's not always verbal. It can be everything. And I feel that's how nature communicates as well. Maybe we see a red flower and we get this feeling on the spot. And it might be the feeling that, okay, everything is going to be okay. And then I feel that's the universe's way of communicating with us. So to me, that's what I feel intuition is.
Yes, it really resonates with me, especially, you see, the idea of a benevolent power we can call the universe, God, life, soul, that is guiding us. It's always present. This is something I talk to a lot of people about, all kinds of things. And this keeps coming back to me. This question about that I actually share here with them, and we discuss this together. If there's this benevolent, loving power, energy that's always here, why do we get ourselves in trouble a lot of times? Why do we suffer? Yes, talk to me about that for a moment, Mei Ling.
Personally, I feel the times when I got into quote unquote the most trouble, I can almost pinpoint this every time, is when I let my mind override my intuition.
Yeah. Yes.
And I feel as humans, it's a constant battle between the mind and the intuition, the shoulds, and because intuition is not always logical.
Yes.
And what you receive is not always the easy way. Sometimes our gut feeling tells us to do something that is scary, that is unfamiliar.
Right.
And then the mind, out of fear, will try to talk ourselves out of it. But then
Right.
I find often when I let my mind override my intuition, that's when I get into real trouble. Then it requires a lot of cleaning up.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's very clear to me. Well, very, very clear. And that's another question that I love going deeper into things about the mind, the intellect. And, I'm a student of Vedanta, which is the non-duality Hindu spiritual philosophy, that they talk about consciousness and mind, that they are two different things. So I think that's where they don't talk about intuitions as much, although I have heard some of the teachers talk about intuition in a sense, almost like being part of the intellect. It's a kind of intelligence it's very natural to the body, mind, in a sense of navigating with those two systems. But consciousness would be something different that's everywhere. It's not really in the body. It's not localized. It's just everywhere. So when you talk about the mind, I would love to go deeper into it in the sense of knowing the difference. Like, what are the qualities of the mind? How do we know really what the mind holds and what intuition kind of expresses and tries to guide us into?
Oh, I love that question. I feel the mind is not quiet at all. It tends
Yes,
to be
so
very
true.
noisy.
Yeah.
It's nonstop and it's very conflicting. It will go in circles and circles. It will go, should we do this? But then this person might think this. No, we should do this and then that.
Right.
And it seems that it's very much based out of fear. It's very much based on urgency. It's very much based on, oh, something happened, it's reactive, we must do something now. Whereas intuition, compared to the mind's voice, I find it's a lot more quiet. It's often very quiet. It's very grounded. It's firm. So, when you get a gut feeling, it doesn't go away. It will keep coming back. It's insistent, but it's kind and it's compassionate. It doesn't speak to us negatively. It might be firm. It might say, please listen, but it won't. The mind can be very, very mean. And I feel intuition much more often than not is felt in the body or in the heart. And I would say those are the big differences. Mhm.
Yes, that also resonates true to me, especially the when you speak of kindness, right? Coming from
Mhm.
intuition, but also truth. It's true, like in a sense of expressing, trying to reveal truth, right, Mei
Right.
Ling? And like you said before, it's not really trying to be logical about it. Sometimes we have to let go of certain things.
That's right.
And I
Yeah.
remember that, yeah, having those intuitive thoughts years ago when I had to make big decisions about my life, going through depression and all that. And I remember really listening to my intuition and doing what it was guiding me to do. And then a lot of the actions that I was supposed to take, that I took actually, they didn't
Uh-huh.
seem logic. It didn't make any sense. Leave the job that I had worked
Yes.
so hard for, and then leaving the city, New York. At the time, I was living in New York as a personal trainer, going to France to write my book. That doesn't make any sense. And I did it anyway.
I feel like it's so brave to follow that.
Yes, right. So it takes
Mhm.
courage, doesn't it? And
Mhm.
I guess the next question that comes to mind is, I don't want to try to make this easy, how easy it is to live from intuitive mind, but how do you balance listening to the mind and intuition? Do you try to listen more to your intuition these days and have all that amazing courage to follow what it's supposed to be done?
I feel at the end of the day, it's good to have things in balance. I feel that,
Mm,
we have a mind for a reason. And like you were saying,
yeah.
consciousness, it encompasses
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
So I feel, when there's a good balance between common sense,
Yeah.
which I take, when the mind is in its best state, and intuition. And I feel when we get that intuitive nudge, this inspired idea to do something, then often, like you said, we have to take action on it. And the very practical, nitty-gritty details,
Yeah.
like planning
Yeah.
or things like that, it still requires the mind.
Mm, yeah.
So I would say it's a good blend of both, but I often
Mm,
have, or at least try to have, intuition leading and then
mm.
following up the details with the mind. Yeah.
Yes, that's clear to me. Yes.
Mhm.
So we are not dishing the mind. We're not
Right.
letting it go of that part of us. Okay. Yes. So we do, like you said, beautifully and clearly. Yes. We gather, listen for the insights of intuition, what's here to do. And usually to me, it seems like intuition is able to see the big picture of
Yes.
whatever it is,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. It can see ahead what we can't see now. Yeah.
Right, right. I see that. Like, oh, I
Hmm.
can clearly see something as a vision, this happening. It feels really amazing in the body. And I
Yes.
mean, but then I don't know how to get there. I don't know how am I gonna
Yeah.
ever get there? And then that's the mind needs to be clear and quiet in order to execute, let's say, to plan, right, the steps. In a healthy way so we don't get hurt. Because I remember getting hurt by not being clear with the mind and just following my intuition. And then I got myself in trouble many times too. That is.
It can happen. Yes.
Yes, right. In my case, it
Yeah.
did. Just so I
Yeah.
just have to say this here. Oh my God, we have so much to talk about. Let's see. So you are a third generation intuitive and creator of Soul Agenda School. I love that. Soul Agenda. That caught my attention. So I would love to hear more about the work you do with other people, with your clients. Is that through Soul Agenda? I know you have a website, which I will have here on the podcast notes. So talk to me about how you work with clients. Is your work for everyone or certain people only?
So when I first started as an intuitive, and I suppose the more common word for intuitive is like a psychic medium, but the word psychic I feel is very loaded and has a lot of negative connotations. So I prefer the word intuitive. And also, like I said, intuition is something we all have, and I believe we can all access. And so I prefer to use that. And when I first started out, because I'm curious about people, I first started, doing soul purpose readings, but more and more, I began to notice there was a common pattern between all the women that came to me, and they all tended to be the black sheep or the scapegoats of their families, which was interesting because I am the black sheep and scapegoat of my family. And so What I help women to do, a lot of black sheep and scapegoats, they are born feeling inadequate and not good enough. And that's something that's very painful when you're growing up as a child, to realize that your family does not accept you for who you are and sees you as something lesser. And that wound that you carry, it will carry through every part of your life. It affects relationships, it affects goals and dreams, careers, and all these other things. And these women that come to me, they don't realize that they're these buried diamonds. So I help them move from feeling not good enough to shining their light into the world, because a lot of black sheep and scapegoats, they are born with special soul gifts. So the soul agenda, the plan that their soul had, set out for them in this lifetime. And there's a reason why they were born to be the black sheep, the scapegoats of their families, because they are actually cycle breakers.
Wow. Yes. Wow. I'm just trying to observe all that, kind of trying to actually put myself in that position, because I don't think I was the black sheep. I was kind of the opposite of that. Everybody liked me because I was always giving in, always doing everything that everyone wanted me to do in my family, and then getting punished for no reason, but it's still there, very loyal and faithful. And so I am trying to relate to that. But I had a conversation too with somebody recently. Yeah, she mentioned that I was the scapegoat, and she mentioned that term too. And then they became cycle breakers. I remember these two women. One of them fit exactly the description that you just mentioned, and the other one was more like me. And I remember that I think my husband fits the description of black sheep. Definitely does. So this is, wow. I guess another question that comes to me is the soul agenda. That's an interesting idea. So do you believe that, I have heard that so many times, that we plan our lessons to learn certain lessons here in this lifetime? That's what I have learned. I have heard from people. That resonates true to me, but there's something in me that keeps asking to go deeper into it, in a sense. Okay, if this is true and you have made a choice to be here in a human body and go through all these painful experiences in order to learn something great, what's the way out of that? How can I stop this cycle of birth and rebirth? So I did a lot of study with Buddhism, because I wanted to understand that, how to stop the suffering, the karmic cycle. So now I would love to hear, well, I have a different idea now of what all this is about, but it still seems to be a practice, a going deeper kind of a felt understanding of this relationship between karma and also freedom. So I really want to hear from you. What is your thoughts on freedom? Like, do you envision yourself being free as a soul, in a sense that you don't have to come here again as a black sheep, and we don't have to go through this? So yeah, talk to me for a moment about the soul agenda and freedom, the way I just tried to describe.
Whew. Freedom is something I think about a lot. And I wish I could say that I could just get it for Christmas. But
Yes, that would be
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, it's a very big question that I ponder about all the time as well.
Yeah.
And definitely soul agenda is something, what you mentioned is on my mind all the time too. Why do we have to have these lessons? And, why do we have to repeat? And how can we get off this repeating hamster wheel? And I feel probably nobody in the world has the answer. I always think of the story of the three blind men and the elephant, and nobody really knows what the elephant is like. So I'll tell you like if I'm holding on to the tail, I'll
Yes.
tell you what I feel about the tail. So working with my clients, because I communicate with their spirit guides, and I get to hear some of the plan they put together, and also from my own experiences, I definitely feel, we are put into certain situations on earth with certain people, the families, to heal parts of us. These tendencies that we might have had over many lifetimes, if you believe in reincarnation. And with a lot of my clients, it revolves around, not feeling worthy and not loving the self. And the universe is very interesting. Sometimes these lessons are, it may seem very cruel and harsh, to put someone in a family with parents who, don't accept you or love you. But I find often with clients and myself, because of that situation, and because of maybe that lack of what was needed, that's where the search starts. It's that starts, it sets them on the path. And for myself, I know when I felt unsupported and unloved by the very people who should have done that, I started seeking. And I would often go, as a teenager, I would go take my dog on a walk outside, and I would look up at the sky and I would see the moon, and I would feel a connection, a nurturing feeling from the moon. And I started to talk to the moon. And this was when I didn't know about astrology, or I didn't know about anything, but I later found out that the moon is very much a symbol of the mother and of nurturing. And that started that connection. And it slowly, started this path towards self-love. And so often it feels unexplainable or strange, but I feel the universe puts these, challenges and lessons there for us to give us what we need, not always what we want.
Yes, so true. Wow.
Yeah.
I can relate to all of that. How wonderful to hear that as a confirmation, really, that life loves life. Life it seeks harmony, seeks balance. You see that in nature. So that makes sense to me, Mei Ling, that because we are, living in a natural world, and the body's part of it very much, and we return to it. So it seeks balance. I have heard that before, so that's why I mentioned now. Life loves life. And then I also heard something that resonated very true to me. I am life. I don't have a life. So that really resonated too. You see, I think a lot of times it's like we talked about the mind. The mind, it's a very interesting space that it keeps taking credit for everything. So
It
everything
does.
that very happens doesn't happen. It blames itself or blames everything. Or if it happens, oh, I did it. It's always taking notes, and it's always, let's say, it owns everything. But what about if freedom is exactly that? There's no ownership. We are life. So it just happens. And it just, and even if it happens in circles and cycles, it's just what it does. I've been really trying to, one of my practices is really try to accept whatever is happening exactly the way it is, without resisting, without being afraid of it, without, of course, fear is innate, right? The body, mind complex. You can't really become fearless. We can only have more courage. That's what I have learned. As you mentioned, the spirit guides. I just had a beautiful conversation with somebody yesterday about that. She's a medium, yes. So she communicates with people who have passed, and also spiritual guides of her own and other people. So what's the connection between the spiritual guides and intuition, and then the soul agenda? How can we connect all that?
So I would say that the spirit guides, if we imagine that when we are incarnating on Earth, we can imagine that we are like an astronaut on the moon. So we're wearing this, that the astronaut suit, we're wearing the human skin.
Yeah.
And we can only see everything that's on ground level. And so our guides are the ones that are, guiding us, helping us. And we can imagine them as being in the Houston control center. So they have the bird's eye view of everything.
Yes.
And they're communicating with us through, the intercom link, which I would say is your intuition.
Yeah.
And they have their paper, they have their notes, which is the soul agenda. So the plan that you made for this lifetime, okay, we want to have these learning experiences. We're supposed to meet these people. And then us being on the moon, being unable to see too far ahead, or, not really getting the bird's eye view, we might see, there's a few steps in front of me. It looks like there's a steep drop off. I'm scared. I'm not going to cross this. And then our guides who from the control center, they can see, oh, it looks like a steep drop off, but it's actually just 2 feet. Just jump. You'll get to the other side, and
Yeah.
then there will be a wonderful adventure. And so our guides then use our intuition to speak to us either through a synchronicity, through someone else. It could be through a symbol. If we see an animal or an insect, that gives us the feeling that, oh, yes, it looks scary, but I can do this. And then we make the leap, trusting the intuition. So the spirit guides message.
Yes. And that also makes sense to me. The spiritual world using intuition as a communication tool to get to us. When you speak of signs, that, of course, I have experienced that many times. Yeah, synchronicities and signs, all that. And I always ask for that, send me a sign. I always ask for assistance, but I have no idea who I'm asking assistance to. No idea at all. And some people actually, they speak of seeing their spiritual guides. Have you had experience with that too, Mei Ling, of seeing them with your human eyes?
I would say that happened more frequently when I was younger. So under the age of 7, I think we are much more open to experiencing different things. The mind and the logic hasn't really stepped in yet to gatekeep things. But I have heard of other people, and sometimes when I've been in some rough patches in life, when I really needed some help, then out of the corner of my eye, I would see someone.
I don't think I have seen, I'm just trying to remember. That's an amazing experience to have. And I talk to people who see, actually, they talk to entities from beings from different planets, and they actually sit with them and have a conversation like we are having now. Yeah, they see people who have passed from their family sit in front of them. They have conversations. They have fun with them actually too. They dance together and all that. You see, this is an interesting experience. I see everything as an experience, and it's one that most of us don't relate to because it doesn't seem to be accessible to everyone. And I wonder why some of us don't have access to these. I call them mystical experiences, spiritual experiences. Do you feel that we actually have these experiences, all of us, but we deny them? Or do some people are more sensitive than others? How do you feel about that?
I feel there are definitely some people that are more sensitive to this. And I feel a lot of my clients actually are those people, people who grow up, and you don't have to be, a black sheep or scapegoat for this. If you grew up in a home, even as you, was the golden child, you can be very sensitive to family dynamics. Maybe there is somebody in the family that has a bad temper. And if you're used to tiptoeing around them, walking on eggshells, always trying to feel out what their mood is, because maybe if they're not in a good mood, they might take it out on you. And for these people, they develop this sensitivity, I would say, already early on because they're feeling out someone's mood. And when they were younger, their family would have said, "Oh, you're too sensitive.
Yeah.
I'm taking it too seriously. You're reading too much into it."
Yes.
But then later on, this actually can be developed into a gift where these people are very intuitive, empathic, and they can just sense, energy. They can read between the lines, between what is not being said. So definitely, I think some people, because of how they grew up, are more sensitive to this. And you said, do some of us deny it? I would think so. And a lot of the times it can be because of certain beliefs that are placed on them where, through the culture or maybe through religion, they are told that, these things are bad. And then the mind will block it out because apparently, we receive a ton of information, but a lot of it gets filtered. Yeah. And it can be fear that blocks it out. It can be, certain beliefs that block it out. There are many, many things. And I would say it often takes a life-changing event,
Yeah.
very big event, sometimes to
Yes.
crack people open, like cracking open a
True.
coconut.
True. So true.
Yeah.
Gosh, it has been my case too. There's suffering. There's this purpose to suffering, right, Mei Ling?
Right.
Yeah, cool.
It softens you up.
It does.
Yeah.
It very much
Yeah.
does. Gosh, we don't wish that for others and for
Right.
ourselves, right? But there's
Yes.
something about suffering in this realm that's really part of it. Feels like it's part of it. You just mentioned something before that I made a note here. It caught my attention. It was about making plans. So you talked about the spiritual guides kind of keeping us on track about the plan that we have made for this lifetime. So I wonder if we have the choice at some point to give up on that plan, to just put it aside and kind of choose something else. Like in my case, my main interest is freedom. So I keep going back to, those questions that will lead me to, to the path of freedom. How can I be free from this? And of course, because I'm a student of Vedanta, it's very simple from their perspective. At least they give you the answer before you ask the question even. You are God. You are free already. You're already everything that you're looking for. So they already start like that. And then the mind will go crazy and say, how?
Yes.
That's not possible.
Yeah.
I can't be free. I can't be God and all that. So, and that's what they say is actually that fight that needs to end. Once you really realize and you establish that truth that you already are everything you're looking for, then the seeking ends. And then now the mind becomes quiet. Basically you rest, you go back, you return to the essence, which is, there are so many names, but we can say God or consciousness, whatever it is. It just quiets everything. And now we have nothing to really fight for or to look for. But it's not really you see, that's my, I guess, something that keeps coming back to me is that even having these conversations here, why do I have this podcast in the first place? Why do I write books? Why do I organize workshops? So what's the point of all this if I have already found the answer that I am freedom, I am God, there's nothing really to do. But there's something that doesn't, you see, it's almost like they talk about the bicycle, sometimes you're riding this bicycle and you're going really full speed. And at some point you jump out of the bicycle and then the bicycle continues to move forward by itself without you in it. So maybe it's something like that. The body now is just doing what it does, is still kind of carrying the remaining of the karma, and then it just kind of keeps doing this, which goes back to me into being life very supportive of itself, and then try to, okay, I already have an idea, a glimpse of what freedom is, so I want to pass that on to others. I want other people to know and be, just kind of rest within their own love that's already here and just kind of, that's it. But easy said than done. All that, right, Mei Ling? So I guess that was my question. I started to ask that question and then I moved on talking about Vedanta in my understandings. But talk to me about that from your perspective. Can you jump off that bicycle? Like how can you put a stop on that soul's agenda and know that you're free, and just how would you go from that anyway if you get that from your perspective?
I think that's a really juicy question. And I think you are definitely onto something, that the bike will keep moving.
Yes. Yes.
So I feel that, with the soul agenda, with the plan that you have, it's also very much a balance, I think, between, I don't really want to use the word destined, but I think you know what I mean, and between free will. And I feel, our guides in the universe will say, okay, in this lifetime, we have decided that you're going to go from point A to point B. So you will get to point B. So that's like,
Right.
you knowing that, okay, the ultimate goal is freedom. But how we get from point A to point B, I think is very much up to us. So some people, they like taking the shortcut, they get on the plane. Some people will want to do a cross-country drive, get lost a bunch of times.
Yes, I see.
Some people will carry a lot of, luggage with them. Some people will travel light. And I think that's up to us. I do, however, think that eventually, our guides in the universe want us to get to point B. And when you talked about freedom, I think it's, what you said, it resonated with me a lot, that difference between feeling free or not is often if that resistance is there or not. And when I look back, in moments during my life, sometimes I can be it's the most beautiful day. I'm in the most wonderful place in this wonderful setting, but I'm feeling miserable inside. And it's very much internally, right? If there is resistance or not. And I feel when we talk about that ultimate freedom, I don't know that we can, it seems like such a huge concept that our mind can't even grasp it. But I feel that, it probably has to be something that we experience through the body and the soul, and our mind our mind can't understand it. And maybe when, what the universe's plan for us is, and when we surrender to that, I can feel that could be a kind of freedom.
Mm. Yes, you're onto something too, Mei Ling, with that. Yes, the mind, right? Maybe the mind will never understand that, what freedom is. So, but there's something about clarity, though. In Vedanta, they talk about clearing, polishing the mirror. So it's like you can only see your face clearly in a mirror if the mirror is clean and it's sparkly clean. So our only job is really to keep polishing the mirror, which means really clearing the mind, and which has a lot to do, you see, not with the lack of stress or putting ourselves into, let's say, challenging situations of doing something new, trying something new, because the mind usually gets uneasy about that, anything that's new, which relates to the ego too, the false self. So maybe it's that, like having the mind's, being guided by those energies, that essence energy. And it's almost like a trust type of thing, isn't it? If the mind trusts,
Yes.
right, what's guiding
Yes.
it, then it will rest.
Yes, it's very much about trust, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels to me too within that system, because it's one system. And Vedanta teaches that it's just there's one reality, one ground of reality. There's just one thing, really, a real thing that's happening here, not two, which means we are everything that we actually see, that we perceive, the mind, the body, soul, all that, it's part of one huge, let's say, body. So it's part of a system, and that system is wholeness. That would be God. So it's not that God is in everything, it's that everything is in God. So that makes, for me, it was just so clear that even the mind understands that. Like, okay, I think it doesn't understand. It just rests in it. It has been so tired of trying for so long to answer questions and to find a destination of happiness and peace, that when I hear that from you, my guests, anything, or from even myself now speaking, the mind rests in it and just kind of, there's a kind of trust, I believe. I don't know if I can call it trust, but it might be, for lack of a better word. So now that we talked about the freedom piece that I had to bring it into this conversation, let's go back to the black sheep and scapegoat personality type, which I talked to a lot of people about archetypes and personality types, astrology. I mean, all kinds of, let's say, it's almost guiding systems to understand how do we, why do we do what we do, why we feel the way we feel, all that. So what do you bring into the conversation, into this reality, is a very interesting idea, because it's true, right? The people who are not accepted by others, especially their own family, which has been my case, but it's slightly different, because they seem to care for me in a sense of, I don't know if I can say that. But I think one thing about black sheep, do they behave? Talk to me a little bit about the personality a bit more, so I can understand that, Mei Ling. How do they behave in, let's say, do they rebel often? Or they are actually submissive? And because I was very submissive. And
I love this question. It's one of my favorite questions, because there's a big myth around that the black sheep in the media and movies and everything. The black sheep is always portrayed as the rebel, the troublemaker, chaos maker. But really, what I tell people is the black sheep, it simply means the one that is different in the family. And sometimes it means the one that is more sensitive than the others. It could be the one that is surrounded by rageaholics, the one that is calm, or like yourself, maybe, the one that is happy to please, and, the rest of the family is not. So it's the one that is different and not accepted for it.
That's very clear now. So I was one too. I have to put
Yes.
myself in that category.
And there's many different flavors of it too. It's not so black and white.
Right. Yeah. That's insightful, because the idea I had was exactly what the movies portrayed, right? That's
Yep.
It's always rebellious. My sister was like that, always running away. Oh, you're gonna hit me. My mother wanted to hit her. She would just run and just sleep in somebody else's house. So she was like so different. Like, wow, you're very different than I am. I would just stay there and take everything with no problem, so I wouldn't hurt them. Isn't that interesting?
Right.
I would rather hurt myself than try to hurt them.
Right. Yeah.
That's very interesting. There's an Instagram post that you sent to me that you clearly talk about how it affects your relationships, your connection to self, your goals, career, money, everything in an unhealthy way. And then you talk about the good things about it once. And then you talk about the mirror. Oh, you use the mirror too, which is interesting. You say, what would happen if you looked in the mirror and saw a swan? Swan in a sense of, you saw yourself differently. Because we usually don't see ourselves as worth praise or being beautiful, being right. That's interesting to notice too. It definitely was my case. I had a very low self-esteem and all that. See, when we reflect back, the other day I made a video and I cried actually when I thought about how disconnected I was from my body, my heart, mind. It was so much disconnection. And then you talk beautifully, you say, then what would happen? That was a question. And then the part that I highlighted here that caught my attention, you said, we would really know in our hearts that the very things that made us different are our greatest gifts and most valuable contributions. So that stopped me and made me pause for a while. God, yeah, it made me pause. It makes me pause now, as a matter of fact. That's powerful. Yes. You see, we are so afraid of we're so afraid to be different. Isn't that interesting? We want to, why do we want it to fit in so much? Is that because we have this innate desire to belong, to connect?
Yes. I think it goes, even though we are so, quote unquote, technologically advanced now, we can buy and shop things on this little machine we hold in our hand. I think at the end of it, the very primal part of us is still the same. And, I think even now, but really, back in ancient times, to be disconnected or to be ostracized from your family or your clan, it could mean certain death. And I feel that we have this, innate fear of being cut off and ostracized from the group. Yeah. And to be different means, there's that fear to be different means to be cast out.
Wow, that's true, Mei Ling. Oh, very true. And then death, right? Because back then we wouldn't survive if we didn't belong to a group, to a tribe.
Can you imagine winter? Yeah. How are you going to survive? Yeah.
Wow. So that stayed within us. It's still here. And then by not being accepted by our families, that fear sets in. And now we're really trying to survive, in so many ways, emotionally, physically.
Especially as children, we depend on our parents, our caretakers for everything. Yeah.
Right. That's a very good point. How amazing. So I have heard also, the work with archetypes and also spiritual guides, going deeper into the spiritual ideas, concepts of how to live and how to better our lives by understanding, those concepts better, the meaning of the concept, spirituality or astrology and all that, and archetypes and all that. And I have, because I have a lot of interesting conversations here, and that what comes to mind is that we cannot be free from that, it seems to me. You see, I just mentioned before about the bike just running without you, because it's still, the body runs the show here in this reality. So, and it's still informed by ancestry lineages, we can't really disconnect from that. I don't think we could, right? We're still attached to them.
I agree with you. They say that trauma is stored in the DNA, and so that we carry it from the great grandmothers, pass it to, and so on and so on. And I feel that very much as a black sheep. And so as a cycle breaker, what you're trying to do is you're trying to choose a different thing. And it's difficult because it means you're going against all the conditioning, you're going against all the programming. And if you have a partner or a child or, with your good friends, it means that you are going to try to do something different. You are going to try to give them something that you never received. You're going to give them love and caring or, attention that you never received. And that's why it's such a brave thing when, people, they decide to break the cycle. And I feel that strength and everything, they draw that from, I would say, the connection with the universe. Because if they've never experienced it before, yeah.
Oh my God, good point. I mean, so clear. You're beautifully clear. Yes, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yes, Mei Ling. Maybe because, well, I'd say I want to talk for myself, but I know it seems like we have experienced very similar journeys in this experience of life. Yeah, by experiencing this connection from the body, mind, heart at a very early age, in my case, then it created this new connection or this new it's something in me was seeking for a new connection, as you said about looking at the moon, something else that I could connect with. And that by doing that, because I keep saying this on this podcast too, to so many people that I meet, because I interview a lot of therapists and scientists. So I keep saying, this is, I never done therapy because my way of finding myself, returning to myself and finding peace was spirituality, was not really.
Yeah.
So that's what you mean by connecting to divine love, connecting to source, to essence, to God per se. So that's why we are able to give something we never received from human beings. Wow, I never thought it that way. It makes a lot of sense.
In my experience, it's been like that. And with a lot of my clients, I feel that's why they very early on, in their lives, started a spiritual journey. That's how they were seeking that love.
Right. And then for you just mentioned now, was it something that you called spiritual, or did you use a different name for that connection to the universe?
Yeah, I would say spiritual.
You did. Yeah, use the same term, right?
Yeah.
And I noticed that now some people, they also, they're afraid of that term. They, because they connect that to belief systems, dogmas and all that.
Yes.
So I try not to I still use it though, but what word could we use? I'm using also wholeness. I like wholeness. Yeah. There's something about wholeness. But I don't know. It's only words. I guess all this can be expressed really within our presence. I can feel your presence. So I don't think we need words, right, to express unconditional love or the divine love.
I agree.
No words needed.
Yeah.
But you talked to us about that you show up as your authentic self once you get to know your own beauty. And then this is something else that caught my attention. What the Instagram post that you sent. We're almost at the end, and I have maybe I'm trying to go back to the topic because sometimes I can be all over the place if I don't have my notes here. So you also mentioned, as a black sheep scapegoat, you will never be able to prove your worth to people. Basically, you said for many reasons. And then you mentioned all the reasons there. And then in the end, you said, imagine being so comfortable and grounded in yourself that the idea of proving yourself to them seems comical. It's laughable. Yes, trying to prove yourself. Yes. So based on that, talk to me about what it looks like, how to describe what your experience looked like from the perspective of feeling so grounded in yourself that you're not trying to prove yourself anymore. So what does give me an idea. I mean, you very much comes across to me authentic, the way you express in yourself. I can see you cannot see me, but it's very clear to me. And also the energy, because I'm very sensitive to energy. So I'm just picking up energies here. But for people who we're not as sensitive, how would you explain that journey of becoming your own true self?
I'll use a story that most of us will know and can relate to. And it also happens to be my favorite and a lot of my clients' favorite fairy tale is The Ugly Duckling.
Yeah.
So, the ugly duckling, it's the different egg, the one that looks different from all the other ducks. And the ducks make fun out of it. Yeah. And for its whole young life, this ugly duckling is suffering because it thinks, oh my goodness, I'm this terrible duck. I'm ugly. I can't do this. I can't do anything that my duck siblings can do. My duck mom is disappointed in me because I'm not being a good duck. Right. And that's a lot of the story with my clients. Yeah. And the reason why you'll never be able to prove your worth if you're a black sheep to your family or maybe to your community is because you're a swan, so you'll never be a duck. And there's a quote going around on the internet that apparently Einstein said. I'm not sure if this is true or not. But, if you're a fish and, people judge you on how good you can climb a tree, you will always feel stupid. So it's all about a perspective shift. In the story, the duckling actually, it doesn't transform. It's always been a swan. Right. But it's at the moment where, it's looking in the pond and there's other swans there and the swans say, hey, did you know you're a swan? And, the duckling looks in the water and says, oh my goodness, I'm like those magnificent birds. I've been a swan the whole time. Yes. And the same thing with my clients when we are doing a session, that moment when they realize that, the moment they realize, oh my goodness, I'm not an ugly duckling, I'm a swan. Everything that I was criticized before, being too sensitive, being too defiant, and actually means that I'm intuitive and means that I'm a free thinker, I'm an independent thinker. And it's like the whole room lights up. And that's when you become grounded and comfortable in your skin. You realize I'm a swan, so now I can just be a swan. Yeah.
Wow. Yes. Oh, yes, a billion times to that truth. And I have to relate that back to freedom, right? Like, wait a minute, realizing that we're already free. And then that's it. Like, all the prisons that I thought I was in, the prison of my own mind and body and all that, it's just an experience. Wow. Yeah, I can very much relate from that perspective, a more broader, like bigger perspective, because my, let's say, not my search anymore, but my, let's say my dance, I have to use that word, it's more fun. I love having fun when it comes to that. My dance is really to stabilize this body, mind, and freedom. So that really resonates true to me. So it's not really becoming, it's realizing what we already are. So it's
That's
not,
right.
We're not becoming anything new.
I feel it's often it's a perception shift that we're making.
Yes. Wow, an amazing one, a very much needed one when we look at the our shared reality in all the suffering because of that, of not seeing our own truth, our own essence, our own identity, our true identity. So we are almost at the end. It has been wonderful, Mei Ling, and we didn't get to talk about a lot of things. Actually, I had so many notes here. Also about the Celestine prophecy, I think the book that you have. I would love to talk about that. We don't have enough time for today, but I read that this is on your website about me. So you talk about your journey and how you read that book. Then you said something that caught my attention. You said, I think you realized that I was made of light and connected to a power greater than myself. Which is really yourself, that great power. It's not.
Right.
And then, you talked about the yoga. I mean, there's so much a lot of things that caught my attention because it's a journey. It's an interesting journey that we go through in order to realize finally what we really are. Not even who, but what. Right. So going almost at the end, I want to also mention that your offerings on your website, newsletter sign up, Soul Agenda Roadmap, and you have Soul Agenda Transformation, Soul Agenda Big Magic. Oh, I like that. And then I want to also mention another post on your Instagram account. It said, what I love is more powerful than what I fear. That's just beautiful. And then something else that I have to mention is that you talked about your friend. I think her name is Sheena. Not sure if I pronounce it correct. Sheena.
Yeah.
She has been like Sheena. She has been like a true sister to me. And then you said soul family connections help heal you. So basically saying that there are different kinds of family, right? That has been very much my case too. Finding soul friends like you and so many people that I connect with. That's one conversation I already feel like I know them forever. Like, oh my God, it's like eternity in the moment. Like, oh, now everything makes sense. So what else? Before we say goodbye, I want you to mention, I know there's another offer for today, is the opportunity to win a one-on-one mini reading with you. You choose 5. So talk to me about that. I'll have the link on the podcast notes, of course, but please talk to me about everything that you left unsaid for today's conversation, Mei Ling.
So I'll talk about the offer first. So if you're listening to this and you're a black sheep and you are currently experiencing people-pleasing burnout, overworking, and getting underpaid, or you feel like you keep repeating negative cycles, what really might be missing is just knowing how valuable you are. We talked about everything maybe that you were criticized for, it can lead to your gift. So I'd love for you to have a chance to sign up to win for a one-on-one mini reading, and we'll reveal your personal chakra signature to identify patterns and barriers that are holding you back. And from that, I hope that you walk away with 2 action steps that you can take to start rewriting your story.
That's wonderful. I'll have the link on the podcast notes. I do have the link here.
Perfect.
So thank you so much, Mei Ling, again. So I guess that was, I think I just included that question here. But before we say goodbye for today, is there anything that you left unsaid, anything that was meant to be said, was meant to be here that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Oh, yes. I just really want the listeners to know, when I was younger and, growing up as the black sheep, there were often, it was difficult to relate to other people because they had quote unquote, normal families. And I would just like everyone to know that there are many other black sheep out there. And when we show up as ourselves, we show up as the swan, I feel that we beam energy out, the right signal to the right people. And that's the way that they can find us, and that we're not alone on this journey.
Yes. Yes, 1 billion times that truth, a beautiful truth to me that it took a while to be realized that I was not alone. Thank you so much again, Mei Ling, for your presence in our reality, for being open to life, for being you. Thank you. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed this conversation with you so much.
Yeah. I feel the same way. So before we say goodbye, the website is meiling-intuitive.com. I'll have the website and also your Instagram link on the podcast notes as well. So I'll have everything there. Thank you so much again, and we'll talk soon. Take good care. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Mei Ling Choi and her work, please visit meiling-intuitive.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.